Hey everyone, welcome back. Shoes here, This Irish Life. Back for another Buried Ireland series, episode 10, the last part of our adventure. We're going to tie together a lot of the stories that we've spoken about, and we're going to look at some extra places along the way to add a bit of depth, bring the story a little bit outside of Ireland and just dip into some other areas of mythology and history and a little bit of geography, of course. So the tale is continuing. The tale has pretty much ended at where we're at. We have come to the point where all of our characters, the Tuatha Dé Danann, the Fomorians, the Fir Bolg, the mythical races of Ireland, they have lost a battle and lost a war. To who they lost it to, we're not really sure. It seems to be St. Patrick, the Milesians, the Roman Empire, who were said to have come from varying different areas. Milesians, they say, came from Spain. They say that St. Patrick in the Roman Empire, that he came from Wales, but there's also another tale that says he came from Rome. So the invaders, you can maybe even liken them to the Vikings, even. Who knows? The invaders are the people that caused the destruction, I would imagine, of all these areas. We spoke about St. Patrick walking through the land and blessing the towns, and we joked about does blessing mean dumping a load of mud over everything. Um, so we're going to jump back into the middle of Ireland at Uisneach, where the story ended with Eru, the goddess of Ireland, making a deal with the Milesian invaders. They came to her mountain, and she had an audience with them at the mountain, which is the Starfort Mega Well, also called the Slieve. So this is an interesting one, an interesting aside actually, that a Slieve in Irish is a mountain. So I wonder, is a Slieve like a mega Starfort well? That's as I was saying in one of the previous episodes, that like is the word for a mountain actually one of these things? Like that's a mountain. It's like a mega Starfort well. Oh, the mountain. We went to his mountain. We went to Dagda's mountain, and on the mountain he was up there talking to us from the mountain. And I said, why are they always on mountains? Well, maybe the mountain, even in the olden days, in the Crystal Canal cities, the mountains were, that's what you call these mega Starfort wells. So where I am here, this random Greco-Romano, um, I suppose it could be labeled like a kind of a mausoleum type of building, would you say? Anyway, let's notice immediately and reset our minds that we've got 6 to 12 feet of mud on here. This could very well have been a canal, and there could have been walkways up high. So there's definitely a possibility that there could have been pathways, because I do see pathways that are up high that look old, and then below them, you just wonder how what low the wall actually does go below some paths. It seems to be at the top in some areas, and it seems to be covered in more layers in other areas. So this little building here is John's Hall in Birr, and Birr is down here in this area here. And the reason I pick it up is we're going to talk about Birr Castle a little bit in a moment. Um, and Birr Castle has an interesting history because we're going to jump back into the who were these people, who were the Crystal Canal city builders. Who were these people that was a combination of the Fomorians and the Tuatha De Danann? Who were they? The families that seem to have fought with each other and destroyed each other's mega Starfort wells. They destroyed each other's mountains, and they were left with a world that was just completely and utterly annihilated. And it seems that up until the 1600s, this was going on, and we're going to dip into that as well. And that's where we're going to link in the Birr connection and Birrtown and Birr Castle and the stream of events that connect the final battles of Ireland, or what seem to be the final battles of Ireland in the 1600s. So we've got to remember as well, the stories put the battles of Ireland way, way back. But what we're saying, for a reclarification, is that like what happened with these wells. So the Mega Starfort wells started popping and overflowing the landscape with whatever was in them around sometime kind of, it could be like 1300s, 1400s, 1500s. This could have been going on. I have a feeling it was a slower pace than a massive all in one flood. And I'm not sure if it was being mirrored in some kind of weird reality way in multiple places, as in they had multiple avatars. I'm not sure. I don't know. Anyway, that's a bit too deep to go at this early stage in the presentation. But we are at part 10, so I'm going to throw out all the considerations here that we need to look at, and all the anomalies and all of the dots that join when you put a crystal canal civilization together with unlimited immortality and genius and access to any type of information you would want to build such a fantastical world, because that's what it is. It's ridiculously fantastic. Canals, stars all over the world. Every inch of ground is covered by them, it seems. Like it was completely terraformed, and now it's all covered in mud. So it's in the 1600s that the final ending of it seems to happen, which we're going to discuss in part 5 as well. We're going to discuss the end, and the stories of the Battle of the Boyne, which we mentioned in the first episode where we started. Battle of the Boyne happened up here near Dundalk. There was a siege of Dundalk with Oliver Cromwell, which was also a very, very significant event in Irish history, and we'll go into that. And we're going to pop into another couple of places along the way, so we'll see how we get on. But before we do that, we are going to go back down here immediately, and we are going to go on a bit of a crazy sidewinding journey before we start. Look at this here. The shapes just are really popping out now as well. I don't know, is it that my eyes have reset to it or what, but I'm really seeing the stars in all areas now. So right, once again, we're back here, St. Peter and Paul's Church, and we're going to have a look now at another dimension of the puzzle. And we're going to give this some thought. And we are going to speculate a little bit, and we're going to get creative. We're not saying that this is or is not the case, but we are speculating as to what kind of environment could support the conclusions that we might draw from what we look at here. So what we're looking at here, we're looking at like lots of columns. So all the buildings have lots of columns and arches and marble looking like swirling, shifting shapes. Okay, so they are very swirling and shifting, and that is a common theme of all of the columns that are in churches, which we will see. So we're going to just have a quick look. We left here the last day, you might remember, at the end of episode 9. We looked at a couple of these, and we were wondering, like, I mean, is this lady here gigantic here? Is she? Or is this just artwork? It looks like, unless these were multiple levels of tiny people, she is very gigantic. But I'd imagine that could just be art in this case. But those windows are majestic. They really are. So let's have a look at this one here now. This is interesting, okay? Because I don't know, is this in Birr? I don't know anything about the history of it. Maybe it's a new casting, because we're looking at statues here today, and we're going to look at some statues. So we need to be very careful with statues as to what we wonder they are, okay? And I think you probably have an idea of where I'm going with this because I did mention in the last episode, and I did point out that at the top of this particular church there is a statue, a very well made statue. And this is a common theme on many, many, many buildings, as you are probably well aware. There is a lot of statues all around our world. Some are sitting on top of buildings, some are sitting in alcoves, some are sitting beside graves, some are lying on graves, some are they're in churches, some are in museums. But there is a whole ream of statues out there, like loads of statues. So what I speculated in the last one, in the last episode, it's a very big speculation, but it's linking in, and my logic is that if we're considering that there was a gigantic canal civilization, which there was, by we looked at the land and it's clear that it has been terraformed. And if that civilization was originally made out of something that was more crystal-like than limestone, because everything now is limestone, but it's all got crystal in it, within it. So it's almost like something happened to the original, because Atlantis and the stories of Atlantis, they talk about crystal and the abuse of crystal energy. So I speculated that they knew how to make pretty much anything out of the matrix, the crystal structure. So they could make, I suppose you call them androids. It would be an android essentially, and the android would be crystalline in structure. They were the masters of the crystals, and so they had a crystal canal civilization. They were masters of crystals and they were masters of water. So I am wondering that, and this also links into why everything is repeating itself all over the place. Because I am wondering if they had the ability to create crystalline androids that they could inhabit, so they could transfer a section of their soul into the android, into the crystalline, um, into the crystalline. It's essentially a robot, made of crystal, like programmed, like as in, it's not. It actually doesn't have internal organs or anything, is what I'm thinking. It's literally just some sort of T1000 type of. It's like a T1000, in fact. Is it? Like a T1000 of some sort? Just um like like T1000 isn't a bad example, actually, now that I think of it. Like a metal T1000 from Terminator 2 is what I'm thinking of here. This just came to me now. And I know this is a very wild speculation, but it links in very nicely back to what we're discussing. But let's say if you did create an army, like clones, like the history, and they talk about this, and you see it in Star Wars, Clone Wars, and all of this. So, like, is it a case almost that the gods created the gods of the the Irish Tales and the world. Maybe each one is just a microcosm of the other. Maybe it's like a fractal. Like Ireland is a fractal of England, is a fractal of, that idea that everything is just repeating itself in the same way, but getting larger, but all containing the same essential element within it, the nature, the fractal, the idea of the fractal. Um, so this is what I'm considering. I'm considering that they were so technologically advanced that they made what in the Anunnaki tales they called the human race, possibly even. But they were essentially made of crystal, programmed crystal, super duper programmed crystal, like a T1000, a metal structure, and like they say they were shapeshifters as well. Like, I mean, could that be the shapeshifter thing? Like the metal shapeshifting? Now that is gas. The original shapeshifter is the T1000. We got to pull up the T1000 there, I think. It's just. We have to get up the T1000. There's just something about that thought there now I've never considered up until a couple of minutes ago. T1000 images. So here is the T1000. So for people who aren't aware, this is from Terminator 2 from the 1990s. I remember it very well. It was a super hit movie. And Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's a total legend in it. So what I am considering is that if you can make a T1000, let's say this is the gear and it's programmable, and I'm thinking that even the crystal, like the way they made the storms when the Milesians arrived, like I think that the crystal was like basically, it was a force field. If you look back at the previous episodes, I don't know where I said it, but I go into detail about the nature of the crystal. But it essentially turned to limestone, I think. But here we've got the T1000. He's a metal shape. He's a shape shifter. He can make shapes with his hand. He can turn his hand to different things. This is a different version of him, but essentially it's the same. This is the new shapeshifter in the recent Terminator. This here, he got shot in the face, shot through his face, and his face just split. Can't kill him. So what if you had a planet? Oh, no way. Could that be possible? I suppose anything is flipping possible in this crazy flipping scenario. I can't rule out anything at this stage because it's just like the fact that it's in movies as well. It looks like such an elf. Maybe he's still, maybe he's still a real T1000. Now that would be epic. Um, so essentially, what I'm saying is that were these statues T1000s, and the T1000s had to go. They had to be wiped out. And maybe the T1000s even took over, because you'd have to have people behind them. But imagine you were, let's say even like the aristocracy of old. Were they the ones that survived? The way the story of Noah and the children of Noah. Maybe the children of Noah, they're all the T1000s, They're all the silicon-based humans, essentially. They look exactly like humans, and like they or they would look exactly like humans. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference. It's a silicon-based human, and they would live in this environment. Let's say, for example, like we assume all the time that the environment has changed significantly, but maybe it's not that different. Maybe it's a bit colder. And obviously, they don't have the tech, and the canal cities are completely different than they used to be, and that probably took away all sorts of magical powers and things like that. So they were basically, so they had no powers left. The majority of their armies and their people were destroyed. Let's say of this race of people that would have been, let's say, if we're saying they were animated during this time, and somehow got frozen, like in the stories of Medusa, everyone getting turned to stone. Like this is a common theme in mythology. Like this is not an unusual theme to consider in mythology, and especially since we're looking at the broader picture of what could have happened here, we're going to see some very crazy examples of why you might consider that these guys here were some sort of android that got wiped out because they weren't behaving. Maybe they're shocking. There's something, there's something bad. Maybe they got corrupted. I don't know. Maybe not to, we're just speculating. We've got this guy up the top. Wild speculation, isn't it? Absolutely wild. But I've got to get used to that there now. Is that stone there? Green stone? Looks like green stone, doesn't it? It is green stone. Anyway, this guy here, the top, like look at the detail here on this fella. Like either that or they were 3D printed and they were put up there. But I am of the opinion that everything was animated. This is why I'm saying that I'm going to go through some pictures here in a minute. We should probably just jump in right now. But even this here, before we go into it, like could you imagine now this was frozen in time, but this was moving before it was frozen, if you get me. So whatever was in here, it was some sort of, it was moving, it was alive, it was like all these buildings were fully alive. The whole buildings, they were all completely, I won't say electrified because they were electrified and they had memory. You could probably talk to it, like everything. It's like some sort of, it's like the ultimate Alexa, the ultimate, like this, like if you could take the technology of Amazon Alexa, which we have today, if you could take that to its absolute maximum, you would end up with buildings that are completely smart. These are like super smart crystal buildings. So it's like super duper smart cities, crystal smart, back in this world here. And they had super duper smart little these things, maybe. But these were animated. Maybe they didn't do much, but maybe there was a simple program in it that this lifted its head up and raised its wings and then put them down again. And it was just a simple program. But like this crystal, like the technology was licensed, it was available, everyone could make their own stuff. Like loads of people were doing it, like nowadays, except at a massively bigger scale and more complex. And everything, like they knew everything, and everything was available, and there was no limit to resources. Um, the guys who wanted to do these things, they could do it. Like this building here, you can see that the level, so the canal level down here, like that could very well, now somewhere else, that could very well just be covered in dirt. And you'd see the bridge going into the dirt, you see it all over the countryside. Um, so exciting stuff. Exciting stuff. And these buildings, then for a finish, let's just remind that this is probably sitting on top of a fort, a mega well, or close to the top of the mega well. So all of this here is a mega well that has the main canal running through it. So we probably have one mega well on this side, which was one person's, and then another one on the other side, and then canals running all through it. The water level was much lower. You could access the underground areas of the cities from down below, so you get off the canals and you go under and then you go up. Kind of like London. London is kind of like that still nowadays. So look, with that, we are going to go and we're going to jump into some common pictures or common or not so common. We're going to see, where are they now? Okay, so here we go. Hold on to your hats and suspend disbelief for a few minutes and just consider what we've been discussing and the world that this place was. So, this is St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. These guys are all up here, all over the place. They're everywhere. And maybe they chose to stand here. Like, the tales of the flood is that, like, they knew it was coming, or the cataclysm, they knew it was coming. Maybe the flood wasn't what got them, or maybe there was some weird Medusa's head weapon, just bzz, they turned them all off, turned off the whole civilization. Like maybe that's what happened with the Mies, like everything turned off, all the crystal, absolutely everything just turned off, all the technology. So was it a case that the technology or the crystal, the T1000s were gone rogue like in Terminator? I wonder, do you know, is that what happened? Like, is that the story? Is the archetypal story of Terminator that they had this crystal world that was programmed to such a level that it was amazing, and then it got to the level where they had these androids. The androids got self-aware, and they had to shut the whole thing down in order to take out the silicone based or the crystal based fake humans or fake whatevers. Maybe the minotaurs and everything were fakies. Maybe there's only one. Maybe you can only. I wonder actually, do you know the way that we look at genetic engineering and things like that? Like I wonder, like, is it actually not possible to do genetic engineering? They just pretend it is so that we think it is. But really what all they're doing is they're messing around with like crystal technologies. And I wonder, do they still have the technology, but on a smaller scale? So I wonder, have they got the ability to reinvent these things if they are crystal and if they are like robots or T1000s? Have they got the ability to reinvent them, or don't they? And are they just dying? Like, are they just dying normally, and they can't shoot their body back into a new one of these, or maybe they still make them. It's not beyond the realms of possibility. Maybe these things are made in the underworld. Who knows? And they just pump them out. And the land of the divine, the nature land, is above, above the ground, and below, under the Starfort mega wells, are they just pumping out this kind of crack? Who knows? That's nice to speculate, but anyway. That's a pretty, like, look at this, it's just gigantic. You know, you could look at that for so many reasons. That picture, you could spend a day breaking it down. Look here, the lads there, look at them. Look, they've got like funny hats on here. He's took his hat off. He's a monk. He's got his hat on. These are the lads that we just looked at there up at the top of St. Peter's Basilica. We'll just make it bigger and we'll get a good look in here. But like maybe like either were they part of the building or were they saying, "Do you know what? If we're going out with a bang and we're all standing here and we're gonna, you know, like it's like imagine what's the movie? AI, is it? What's the one where the robot gets intelligent, gets self-aware and grows emotions and love? And there were people marrying robots back then. It's crazy to consider. It's wild, and you know what? I'm delighted that it managed to make its way in because like it's legitimately a potential part of the story. Like all these statues, it's a huge anomaly, and as I said, I am going to look at the anomalies that are presenting themselves. And once again here, right? Look at this. So it's all marble, marble, marble. But imagine the marble which looks flowy, it's always flowing. And look at this guy here, like he's marble. And all the statues that are limestone are actually kind of marble. If you power wash limestone and if you wash the limestone like gravestones, it comes up like marble, which is crazy. I wonder, that would be an interesting test to do. So all of this here would have been animated, is what I am saying to consider. Everything animated, all of it, like just moving. It was all a majestic, beautiful crystal, just wonderful, and all controlled by the Mies. So the Mies of the civilization that controlled everything. So not just the wells, it controlled these. Like, who popped the wells? Did the T1000s pop the wells? You know? We've gone way off on a tangent here with T1000s, which is good. Uh, has taken it to a kind of an odd next level. It kind of added a weird dimension to my considerations now, and I hadn't really thought of it. I hadn't actually thought of it at all up until I mentioned it literally on this video. And now it feels like it has to be considered because it's not something that is ridiculous. Like if we had another 100 or 200 years, who knows if we could make T1000s? Why not? And look at the technology now. We could make we could possibly make a T1000s in the next 50 years. We could have them already. They could be walking around amongst us already, and we wouldn't even know. So we have to consider everything in this. Like this cover up is just so gigantic that, and then as it's revealing itself, the levels. I mean, up until a couple of years ago, I was thinking that ancient Egypt was back 4,000 years ago, so Sumeria, and I was thinking that maybe there was gods way back then, but it wasn't so real because it wasn't that far away. But now we've brought all of these events up to like that within definitely within the last 1,000 years anyway, 100% within the last 1,000 years. Like magical crystal canal cities, sharp lines. Like once again, remember the sharpness of the lines on the buildings, which is a dead giveaway for how old they are. Like they could well have only the buildings could have been built in the early 1000s, and it could have all gone wrong by the 1300s, and the canals could have been or the wells could have been popping from then, and then by the 1600s we've got Oliver Cromwell coming in doing the final cleanup, and then the 1700s, 1800s show up into industrial revolution where they dug everything out. They got a level of technology back. They introduced trams, and like the technology is probably still working to an extent. And what happened here? How deep is the pyramid? I didn't even realize the writing there on that. Why are we even looking at this? But here's another majestic building. Absolutely phenomenal is the word. This is probably one from It's Gone. This is from John Levi's channel. Big shout out to John Levi. I learned a lot from you, my man. Big shout out to all of the researchers. I'll give Philip a shout out. Martin Liedke, big shout out to him as well. He's done some fantastic work. UAP, he's done some excellent work. Autodidactic, he's done excellent work. And who's the other chap? Conspiracy or Us, also fantastic. There's been a couple of others that have come and gone in the Tartaria research discussion. Colin Gibney, he's done fantastic work in Star Forts, and a lot of my work has been inspired by some of the stuff that I came across of his while making this video series. Colin is amazing at what he's discovered, and I'm sure there's a couple of others. There's certainly plenty of others. There's some fantastic researchers out there that are relatively unknown as well. But I'll give Matt in Quantum of Conscience a shout out actually, and Susquehanna Mike, Susquehanna Alchemy, two excellent channels with really, we're going to touch on some of it, and I have touched on some of it, but just the nature of reality itself and what's happening, can we like the nature of time and the nature of reality and how that twists into this story of the past. There's so many loops and there's so many little rabbit holes, and we're looking at the three. The one becomes three, the common kind of symbology and the same families. So you just wonder about the fractal nature of it. That building again. So look at this building here. So this is, once again, look, this is what you've got on top of your mountains and your hills. Like, bor an sliabh tá teach an bhór. On top of the mountain or the hill, there is a big house. That's what that means. So imagine that there's dirt all up here. Whoop. Imagine we're going back to Carrickeel, and we're looking at what's the name of it? Carrickeel Tomb. It's not Carrickeel, is it? Can't remember which one, but we looked into it, and imagine there's all mud up here, but you can see a little bit at the top, and there's one or two little random rocks popping out up here as well. There's a few tunnels and caves, but it's mostly rock and mud. And then this kind of pops out here, and the walkways, like you walk up the mountain, the side of the mountain, or you walk up the hill on the side. It's kind of an odd one. And this is quite sheer. This is like a cliff, kind of, but there's mud on top of it, and there's a bit of mud here as well coming down, so it's not so big. And these, like, I think these buildings are like under most of the mountains. I think that most of the mountains and the hills, they've all got something like this sitting on the middle of the top of them. These were the power stations, the mega wells, the mega fort wells, and then they all come out in stars then across the landscape from the central star point, which has one of these phenomenal structures on it generally. Here we go again. Pyramid completely covered with ground, sand, clay. Like, this is, I don't know if there's anything under here. Are they saying there's something under here? When I actually got this picture, I was thinking that there was something under here, but is this a pyramid? I suppose it is a pyramid. Maybe it's just a pile of dirt. I don't know for sure, actually. I can't actually tell, but I assumed that there was something under here, but they're saying there's a pyramid just covered with dirt and sand, and that's coming down here as well. Like this, they could be saying this is a pyramid, but this could as well be one of these as it is a pyramid. Like, I wouldn't be saying that all pyramid shaped hills are pyramids. I'd be saying that pyramid shaped hills could often have these um, on top of them as well. Like, look at the sharpness here. Like this, like you'd say that wasn't built that long ago. Like, look how sharp that is. Very sharp lines. And it's got mud just sitting on top of it. So look, I mean, if you're going once again, you're going to Ishnock Hill where we just were. So you're on Ishnock. Like, it's all covered in dirt. And it's called a megalithic tomb, but it's obviously not. It's one of these, and it's just got stuff piled up on top of it, and that's it. Straight as, simple as. It's got one of those. It's either one of those or it's a big mega well. Here we go again. Look at this, like the Pyramid of Chula in Mexico, and on top of it, we've got this lad here, which is essentially, I mean, if you took all this mud away, this probably goes down here, like this building. It's probably this gigantic, the stuff all here. You could probably go in here, up there, and it's all a star shape. Like, this is the edge of the star, this pyramid part. These are stars. This probably had canals all over the place. This was a canal. It was all canals. Mexico was the same. It wasn't just Ireland. It was the whole world. These star forts and these star shapes are everywhere. And this is what you're seeing. So you go to Ireland and you look at a mountain or a hill, and you see this, and most of it's covered in grass. I think it would be a good time to look over here for one moment and remind ourselves of Carrickeel when we're looking at, is this Carrickeel? Yeah. So when we're looking at this here, look at the structure. These are all the canals that are all filled with sand. They're all filled with sand. Everything's filled with sand. You come up off the canal, you come up here. Someone lives up here, something fancy happening. Canals, look. Sharp lines all down. It's all everywhere, right? Mexico, sand. Ireland, mud. And it takes a second to get the right gauge of the height. But once you see the height, because these are hills, you see, and you can see that, is this one better than the other one? Now this one here, so as you see with this hill, can I go in closer? Is closer better? I think it is. So we've got Keshkaran Caves, right? So imagine this here, right? Here's the edge of the star, around here. Here's the edge of it. This is kind of the bottom, and this is the fort itself, right? So this is the main mega fort well, right? We've got caves here. We looked at those caves in the earlier video, and we didn't quite I'm not sure if we realized that this was a mega structure at the time, but that building or that mound, imagine it's the same thing. It's just a matter of scale. Some are bigger than others, some are gigantic. Look at this over here. Like, you can really see this is the angle. There's one or two angles on these structures with some of them where it really gives it away. And this was the one where I actually realized that these were mega forts, that these were star forts themselves, that the hills were forts. So look, you've got the edge of it here, you've got the other edge of a star over here, and then it dips down there, and you've got your canals separating them. This was somebody else's. This was probably the brother or the sister. This is another one over here. But once again, resetting the mind, like this is it. This is what the landscape looked like. It had these things everywhere. They were like, if you remove the dirt from Ireland's hills, I'd nearly be sure you'd see this kind of carry on. It just makes sense that it would be. So this was the smoking gun back in, I don't know, episode 4 or 5 or 6, I can't remember. Probably 4 or 5, I'd say. This was the one that I started to understand, because the land was so, you could see the undulations on the land. You could see that it's quite high again, like even here, like this comes out around here. Like, can you follow this line with me? Can you see this circle? Not the circle, the curve, or the outline shape. I think it even goes to here and then maybe out around here. Anyway, that's what I am suggesting in our discussions about mountains. Like, to me, mountains are basically these mega wells, these forts, these pyramids, ziggurats, whatever you want to call them. And they were everywhere, and they were they were crystal. They weren't, they were alive. They were like the buildings inside that we discussed a minute ago. Like, these were all alive on the outside. It was like, they could turn them on. It would be like, it would glow maybe. We discussed that in the earlier episodes about how St. Patrick lit a fire on the Hill of Slane, imagine this is the Hill of Slane, and when you light a fire, you basically turn on the machine, and you weren't allowed to have the machine on when the machine was on in Tara at the same time. That's so the story goes. So, like, these were the central points for control within the civilization, and that's why there's such revelations in this material. Olmec City not excavated. Like that could be the plains of Moytura, not a bother. Bit of green, bit of mounds. And look, I didn't even notice that. Like, are these are actually large. I kind of underestimate the size of them. Like, this could be like Carrickeel kind of style. Um, I don't even know how big these are. Like, these seem to be pyramids more than anything. That's like a volcano. Can't really make anything out with the resolution. Anyway, we'll carry on. So we've reset our minds, I think, nicely now back to the old world. We've seen T1000s and we've seen star canal cities and we've seen how crystal could work. We could see the flow, we could see the granite and the marble, the flow in it, and give us an understanding of what the crystal would be like in its operating state, and then layer on the ultimate Alexa onto it, as in tech that can do whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want. You could buy it any day, any time. You could possibly reboot your body into a clone body. You could possibly be going around with like multiple clone bodies, multiple T1000s, all at the one time. So that's why you've got like so many Jesus looking characters and so many Dagdas. And I'm going to discuss later on, and it'll tie in a funny way, because I'm always wondering about the circular nature of the stories, and how like one person is the same as the other person, is the same as the other, the same as the other, and they're like a brother in one and they're a sister in another. So one of the ways I have of um, making sense of that is by saying that, like, King Henry the First and Second and Third and Fourth were all the same person, and they all were aware that they were the same person, if you know what I mean. That they could meet each other, but they generally wouldn't meet each other, because he'd zap himself back into a new body again, like, and he'd come back as Henry the Second. But the people would just think it's his kid or whatever, but really he's a T1000, And they might be doing that for hundreds or thousands of years, God only knows. Um, so that's why, like, the Dagda is the son of Elaha, but he's also the father of Elaha, and um, that's why there is such an overlap between the father and the son and the mother and the daughter. That also goes into like Egyptian, like Horus and Isis and Osiris. Like, the father is the son, reborn. The story goes that Isis collected all of his body parts from all around. Like, the story of Osiris and Seth is that Osiris was cut up. Osiris was the god of Egypt, by the way. Excuse me. Osiris was the main god of Egypt, himself and his wife Isis, and he got cut up into tiny pieces by his brother Seth and spread all over Egypt. And Isis, his wife, found all the pieces except for his baby maker, and I think, did she say she put them back together, or did she? I don't know if she put them back together, but she ended up giving birth in the end. She put them back together, and then that allowed her to have a son by him. I can't remember the exact details. Anyway, it's the same tale again. So look, I'm not going to labour the point. You just decide yourself when we're going to look through this. And you decide for yourself if there's the potential that these things were animated. And when I say, not like, I say animated now, I don't say alive, I don't say human, I say animated. I'm thinking T1000 kind of stuff here. So if you want to think these were humans, by all means you could. But the thing against that argument is that you never see bones or anything in these things. They're just solid marble. They're just solid. You never see bones. Sometimes you do see some metal in there. I have seen metal in arms and stuff, but maybe that's fixer upper. Like if a hand fell off, you could stick a bit of metal in, and like this angel fella here, you could, like if his hand fell off, put a bit of metal in, glue it, put the hand back on, drill the hole. That's a shocking picture. But here's the guy in a graveyard on a cross, hanging out in the graveyard. 6 to 12 feet of mud here as well. Let us remind ourselves. And canal cities. It's easy to get drawn back into our world with such mud. Look at this. I found this picture from somewhere. It was in my pictures. But this is some city in Russia. It says 1852 here. Absolutely devastated up to here in dirt. So, sure, that speaks for itself. Like we've got loads of roads that start up here and come down and turn around. You've got it's a 3-story building here and a 2-story or a 1-story at the back. Look at the big cathedrals then. These fellas, all the tech. This is Russia. A lot of this information actually, it's fairly well known in Russia. So imagine these guys now, right? This is Rome. But imagine these guys are animated, they're tech, they're going, they're actually working. They're not real people, but they're crystal androids. Program crystal androids. Programmable crystal androids. That's what they are. Programming. No wonder programming is so big. They're only waiting for the next range of programmers to come. So here we go again. This girl is at a gravestone. So in our conversations about masonry, we have spoken about what was the potential usage of the vats with the big stones in what we call cemeteries. So it seems that in the time that we're discussing, there was healing and they could heal themselves because that's what the legends say. So there probably wasn't, it doesn't seem to have been death in the same way. But then again, were they healing themselves with these kind of people? Or were they healing themselves with like they're normal people? Or could like the story of Nuada is that he lost his hand in the battle against the Fir Bolg, first battle of Moytura. Nuada lost his hand. So Nuada is Elkmar, he's Noctin's well in Carberry, the source of the Boyne. He is the husband of Boann, who is also potentially Eru, and Noctin is potentially the Dagda as well, and he's potentially Elaha. So his hand got cut off and he got a bionic hand. First he got a metal one, and then apparently he got one that had flesh on it. So are we talking kind of nanotechnology here, or the crystal technology? Is this the beginnings of the crystal technology? Did they have the ability to do this? So imagine these guys animated. Like, I don't know what was going on in these places. Like, there's just huge tech. Like, you make yourself of what was going on in these places. I'm looking at the figures that are at it. Here we go again. Look at the, like, imagine this is on. This is turned like the, and it's flowing around. Something got to do with water as well. Like, it was a water civilization. It was something got to do with the water and the crystal. It was a combination of both, because they were a canal civilization, so they were masters of water. So I wonder, did water run all through these? Because there is the programmability of water. So you know that water can be programmed to hold memory. Water holds memory. There's like an experiment where the water holds the memory of a pattern that's been in it for a certain amount of time, indefinitely. I don't know what it is. I don't know the ins and outs. I didn't research it before this video, but there is research out there that says that water holds memory. It's fairly common knowledge. And if you can program water to hold memory and then run through crystal, what could you achieve? Like, say through this, like with these water-based crystal creations as well. But totally human like, lifelike human. I wonder what brick was as well. Brick is another interesting one. What was brick? If limestone was crystal, what was brick? And what was clay? Ceramic? You know, all those mosaics, what were they? They look like they were cracked actually. You know, a lot of those mosaics. Here's another observation for mosaics. We might come across one. The mosaics, if they were in flow, it's like it's almost like everything cracked when it froze. Like all the walls that were possibly one sheet of crystalline type of material, that they all just crack. One argument against that, I must say, is that I do see an awful lot of masonry close to where I live, and also like an awful lot of the limestone. An awful lot of the limestone where I am, it does have signs that it was cast. So it has the ridges on the edge of the blocks. So we looked at it in a couple of videos, but there's little ridges, little flecks along all of the blocks, and they look very cast. But I wonder as well, I've speculated this, I think that there could have been a layering on all of the masonry, so that there was a plaster covering on everything that literally shattered when the system went down. And what we're left with, the walls are the remainder of what we see. It's like if you think of the Great Pyramid, and they said that it was encased in loads of limestone. I wonder, was everything encased in like a limestone? Was limestone the covering, the crystalline, the outer sheeting for all of the walls? Because there's fierce. It looks in many places like they made the blocks, but there's large. It's on our YouTube actually. Do you know what? I will get it up because there's no point explaining it. So what I'm trying to say is that the walls that we have now are not the same as, they are not the final finished product of what they were. They were much shinier, and they had a covering over them, and that covering was the programmable element. Maybe water ran between the two and there was a current created. There was definitely current, and there was definitely current, and there was definitely programming of the structures going on. Of that, I am fairly sure. From what I can see, it just makes sense that that's the case. So we haven't got it here, but if you go onto This Irish Life, let me see, YouTube, This Irish Life. And the pace of this final episode is going to be slow. It's going to be slow. There's a lot of information to absorb. I want to make sure I do it justice. I think that there's an awful lot of material to process, huge amount, and it has to be given due thought, and you can't jump to any conclusions with this. You really need to take a step back and consider what's going on, you know? Let's have a look here. So this is back in a couple of years ago when I first started looking at mud flood. What kind of speed, what kind of quality have we here? That's a bit wild there now. I don't know, is the quality any good of that? So what I was finding here was large blocks at the edge of the shoreline. I don't know, are they on this actually? I think there's a better video. Apologies, no. Maybe they're here. These like, so it's almost like these all cracked and shattered, you know. This is on the coastline in Cork onto a place called Loch Mahon. So they're all like, and these are the walls of Ireland, you know. This is what's all over Ireland. So if you see here, it's not a very good one. I think there's a better video, which I know. We'll get there. We'll get it. So the blocks, the big megalithic blocks. When I found this under, it blew my mind. When I found it, I was like, no way. Just sealed the deal. Right, see here. See this here, this line. Can't zoom in, can I? Will it zoom? I don't think that's zoomed. It's not. So right, just bear in mind, okay, see this here, and there's a lip here, and there's all these little flecks that go along all here, all up. And that really does suggest that the block here was cast. It really does, in some way. And also there's this part sticks out. So the front of these, the faces of them, they're not straight. I'll let it play there in a minute, but I just want to explain this. So these are not totally straight. And there's a bit sticking out. So what I'm thinking is that all of this had a layer on it, and that was the layer that was covering everything. That was almost the programmable layer. It looks so rubbish, doesn't it? When it's like, it's almost like when you look at it in real life, that it seems like, could this even be true? Like, see this one here? Like, see how it sticks out? So imagine putting a layer of intelligent plaster. Great camera work there, like. Oh, quality. Look at these though. So this is just under a bridge. This is literally a totally hidden away, just a buried bridge. So that's enough of that. It's all over the place. So I wonder, like, were all the walls covered? Like, whatever this is here, this covering, maybe everything was covered in this. If you take this off, you've got limestone underneath. I guarantee you. Or you've got not limestone, you've got red brick as well. That's the other primary ingredient in this. The old red brick and limestone and ceramic. And I'd say we're going to have to call it there because we've gone a little bit over time. So we're going to hit back in the next episode. Can't believe I took my eye off that one. Hoping it uploads now in HD. So we're going to cut it here and we're going to come back and we'll carry on the journey. Think good thoughts, everyone. Yeah.